So today, we're going to go deep into the Brazilian national team. That's right, Brazil. The 5-time World Cup champions, the iconic country and team that has made a name for themselves and how they perform in this specific tournament. Let's go a little bit into Brazil's history first to start.
Oh, okay.
I want to start at
history lesson.
2002, when Brazil last won the World Cup 20 years ago. I was 7 years old, and I'll be honest, I didn't see it. I was too busy watching Blue's Clues, not Cafu. I was busy. And so in my experience, in my life, I've never actually seen Brazil lift the World Cup trophy, which is something I hope to experience one day with how people remark about how magical it is to see a Brazilian team dominate the sport. 2002 comes and they win it. Iconic team with legends like Rivaldo, Ronaldo, Cafu, Ronaldinho, and so on and so forth. 2006 happens. They lose in the quarterfinals to France. 2010, Brazil loses to Netherlands. 2014, it's the memorable loss to Germany, 7-1 in the semifinals. And that's the farthest they've made it since. 2018 comes and they lose in the round of 16 again, this time to Belgium. And so here we are, 20 years past from when they last won the World Cup. And I want to establish a few things because you've said it yourself. You believe this is the best Brazilian team since 2002. And I actually am in agreement with you. I know that there's a debate with that 2006 squad potentially being better, but we're going to preview this team. We're going to give you reasons for why we believe this team might be past that squad.
Yeah, and to say why the previous teams aren't this squad, if you think about 2010, Brazil had a weird group stage. They barely beat North Korea, and then they immediately just got manned by a really, really good Netherlands team. Essentially, if you think about the best teams in 2010, Brazil weren't close to them. They really weren't. It was like in the finals, it was always going to be some version of Germany, Uruguay, Spain, Netherlands. Brazil was not in that top four by a long shot. 2014, Brazil were at home. So they really used that energy. It was a really fun team. But if you think about it, they were low-key using some weird players, man. Like relying on Oscar and a combination of Fred, like Brazilian striker Fred, again, who did as good as they could for the national team. But when you look at what they have now, it doesn't even compare.
Well, that's what a lot of people are talking about. The 2010s might have been the darkest decade for Brazil with that 7-1 loss to Germany, but also the talent that they were producing wasn't up to the level of the 2000s and years past. Now we have a team that might be what Brazilian people have been looking forward to. The Brazilians are itching for a deep World Cup run, and even more so, a victory. And so that's how I'm going to set up the stage going into this World Cup. Can this be the year that Brazil finally lifts that iconic World Cup trophy yet again, and this time at the hands of Brazilian superstar Neymar?
Oof. And that is a perfect setup because I think that's a setup that we have to go with, that everybody has to go with. If I'm going to get straight to the point, which I am, Brazil are title contenders. It's that simple. When you look at this squad, pound for pound, every single player in position, and I know people criticize that back line, sure, but we'll get there. We'll get to that soon. We'll get to that soon. But when you look just a little bit further up that pitch,
just look up a little bit.
Just look up a little bit.
Tilt your head up a little bit.
You see nothing but world-class players.
Greatness.
And it actually, you brought up a good point that I haven't really thought about. If you say that like post 2002 was up to 2022 was a dark time for Brazilian talent, for Brazilian product. If you look at this team now, bro, this might be a defining Brazilian team, not just for soccer watchers, but for people who tune in to watch soccer once every 4 years, and that is at this World Cup. Because I remember growing up, people would tell me Brazil, Brazil, and then I watched them in 2010. I was like, and I was like, they're all right. Uruguay's way better, And then watching 2014 was really cool, but then, they just faltered at the very end. They unfortunately lost Neymar. And then 2018, I thought was a bust, man, a true bust. But when you look at these players now that represent Brazil, you see that samba. You see that flair. You see that dance. You see the talent. You see everything that I heard about growing up as a kid of what a Brazilian player should be. And so I think now people who don't watch soccer and they hear Brazil too, because they hear the word Pele and all that stuff, I think they'll see this team and be immediately satisfied with what they see out on that pitch.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh, this is definitely Brazil. And I didn't get that as a kid, but now I'm going to get that now here at this 2022 World Cup, man, because this team is stacked.
Yeah.
Absolutely stacked.
Going beyond just the eye test that you explained, you look at the numbers, man. One of the greatest qualifying cycles that Brazil has ever endured in their history. Yeah. Accumulating, I think, some like 45 points and actually having a game in hand. They didn't end up playing that last game against Argentina. Yeah. In 17 games, they scored 40 goals, only conceded 5.
Dude.
Only conceded 5, man.
And actually, just so I can get in my small take here, I've said it before, South America is on the downgrade unless you're Brazil or Argentina. And you cannot convince me that, going to Bolivia or Ecuador is hard. It used to be. It used to be hard. You cannot play 17 straight games and not lose and say it's a difficult qualifying campaign. Brazil are that much better, sure, but the quality has dropped opponent-wise. But nonetheless, an insane feat for Brazil to go undefeated and score as many goals as they have.
And so they find themselves qualified for Qatar 2022. All right, so now let's look through the lineup to analyze what options Chiche has at hand, because this team is pure depth. It's pure depth.
Yeah.
We're going to start at the very back.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
At the very back, at the very beginning. For me, the clear-cut starter for this team is going to be Alisson.
Yeah.
Liverpool's Alisson.
And it's funny because, first off, I completely agree. No other keeper is going to start for Brazil at this World Cup. But it's funny because I wonder what was the deciding factor when Chiche decided this way back. Because this has been a decision that he made early on. And it's funny because both Alisson and Ederson are the same age. And honestly, I feel like they kind of hit this stage at a similar time.
Yeah.
Maybe Alisson a little bit earlier with Roma, maybe. And maybe that's why he went with it, because he was just like, he's at Roma, whereas Ederson was at Benfica. Maybe he just valued that a little bit more. Then they both obviously went to much bigger clubs and achieved greatness, both of them. But yeah, I'm wondering what ultimately decided why he likes Alisson. But he's gone with it since the beginning, and it's not going to change.
Yeah, I think overall, I think Ederson is actually better on the ball, but as a goalkeeper who makes routine saves, I think Alisson is safer. It's the clear option. Alisson is going to start.
Yeah.
But then you can also throw in, for depth, Weverton from Palmeiras, who, if he becomes part of this squad, he'll continue the pattern of Brazil. Have you heard that stat where they've only ever won a World Cup when they have a Palmeiras player?
No, just like called up?
Yeah. All they need is a Palmeiras player to be in the squad, and they'll win a World Cup.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So they needed that Palmeiras player. Maybe Weverton, that's all he serves for this team at the end of the day.
He's a good luck charm.
Yeah. But he's also a very quality goalkeeper. Won 2 Copa Libertadores. Palmeiras, been one of the best goalkeepers in South America. So he does deserve that call-up. So that's their depth right there. My goodness, at goalkeeper.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
You want to get into this defense, man?
Oh!
When we talk about the Brazilian national team amongst everybody who watches football, it's the defense that brings up the most discussion.
Yes. And I definitely see why, but I'm going to start with the 2 positions that I think are surefire starts for Chichen. And the thing is, people I think still disagree with this, but I don't see why. I'll be completely honest.
I agree.
I think the 2 starting center backs have to be Thiago Silva and Marquinhos.
Yes, sir.
It has to be. There are no 2 other Brazilian center backs in the world that play at the high level that they do, or have the same high-level experience that both Silva and Marquinhos have. I know people maybe say Silva's a little too old. He is, but he's still shown that it actually, age for him doesn't matter. His IQ, his spacing, his decision-making literally has not missed a beat. And I think people criticize Marquinhos, and I don't know why. I see people say, this backline, if they start Marquinhos, is just going to leak goals eventually, but Marquinhos is a solid defender, man, and he can get involved on corner kicks. He's so effective on both ends of the pitch, but when it comes to defending, which is what his main job is, I would completely trust Marquinhos to get the job done. So having those two center backs already would give me a lot of confidence from a goal protection perspective if I'm Brazilian.
Paired with Alisson as well. That's an incredible back three right there.
Incredible.
You have Rolls-Royce center back Thiago Silva, who knows the game as well as any other center back in the world. And when you got other center backs like Pepe starting for Portugal, that age factor doesn't really come to play for me, man.
No.
And then you look right over and you have PSG's go-to captain in a team that has Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe, Marquinhos.
Yes.
One of the most disciplined center backs in the game, and when he's on it, can be comparable to the likes of Van Dijk.
Yeah, he can be a wall, man.
So good, man.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I agree. I don't know why there's a lot of controversy over these two specific positions. I understand the further positions that we talk about, but for me, these two are pretty solid. And then if you do want to switch something up, you still have quality. You have Gabriel from Arsenal, who's an option as well.
Yeah.
You have Eder Militao, Champions League winner.
Yes. I think Militao would be the alternative in this situation.
Yeah, if someone gets injured or if there's something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And then lastly, you have Sassuolo, best Serie A Defender of the Year winner, Bremer.
Yeah.
At your option, at your disposal.
Yeah. And he's looked, even though Juve as a whole looked bad, Bremer individually has looked pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a weird influx of Juve players in this team too. That's
Dude, I know.
We're gonna have to talk about.
Yeah.
But center backs, Thiago Silva, Marquinhos. We're pretty set on that.
And for me, I think it's just very, very easy, as those two are elite center backs.
Yeah.
And I would not be worried at all if they start.
Yeah. And now the biggest talking point is the fullbacks, because everywhere I see when it comes to Brazil predictions, Brazil analysis, people say strong attacking line, good midfield, even good center backs, but those fullbacks, those little fullbacks, they just don't do it for me. They just don't convince me. That's what everyone's saying. Let's look at the options. At right back, you have Danilo, Juventus Danilo. You have 39-year-old Dani Alves if you want.
If you want him.
Emerson Royal from Tottenham.
Yeah.
And then at left back, you have Sandro from Juventus as well.
Yeah.
And then you have Arana from Atlético Mineiro, who's been getting some call-ups.
He has recently.
Yeah.
He definitely has.
Alex Telles and Colchonero's very own.
Renan Lodi.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it gets very interesting, but I think it's not a nostalgic effect. It's more of like what they used to have very recently. Because when you think about what Brazil had for so long, you had Dani Alves on the right and Marcelo on the left. Two of the most talented, entertaining, effective fullbacks the game has ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man.
And so when you no longer have that, of course you're going to be like, damn it, we're loose in those positions. We quality has definitely dropped, but it's because it has. But the thing is, I wouldn't be too worried about it, because when you take the scope of these fullbacks and you compare them to what all of the other countries have, sure, they're no Marcelo or Dani Alves, but still, players like Danilo, Alex Telles, Alexandro, hell, even Renan Lodi to an extent, are all still pretty goddamn talented, man. So, yes, it is not what Brazil used to have in those fullback positions, but I still think they're pretty solid. And here's what I think was probably going to happen, is what I think Chicha is going to go with. I think Danilo's for sure going to start as right back.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the most talented, the most sound, and he can do both sides. He's very comfortable going forward, but he's also a pretty decent defender. And then on the left side, this is probably the position where Chicha's going to have the most headache as to who he goes with. And I think it's going to be completely down to form. The reason why I say that, Renan Lodi had been getting a lot of starts, but not recently. And it's because of his form, man. Atletico actually let him go to Nottingham Forest. He's loaned out. Probably won't see Lodi play again for Atletico, to be completely honest. It's because his form is pretty heavily dropped from that perspective. When you look at Alexandro, too, for Juventus as a whole maybe have dropped just a little bit. And I think Alexandro is one of those players that has actually dipped just a tiny bit in form. But what gets interesting is that it'd still be fine to play them. I know Alex Telles also was on loan from Manchester United to Sevilla, so his form is also just kind of taking a weird little hit. I'd say the right back with Danilo is completely fine. That left back possession is a little loose as far as quality is concerned, but still, if you have Thiago Silva, Marquinhos, and Danilo all alongside that left back, I think you're going to be ultimately completely okay.
Yeah, because these are still guys that play in Europe. Like, I just don't see them as liabilities.
Not a liability.
People are presenting them as liabilities, and you're completely right. Like, when you have like guys like Cafu, you know, winning you titles at that position, Roberto Carlos, Marcelo, Dani Alves, like these are the best fullbacks the game has ever seen. When you have that type of quality, of course, you're gonna feel a hit when it comes to these present talents.
Yeah.
But in the scope of international football, it's not that much of a downgrade, man.
No, dude.
It really isn't. No. Mexico would be ecstatic to have players like that.
Any one of them, bro.
But even more so, let's say that they are the weakest part of the Brazilian national team, which they might be. To me, the thing that gives me a lot of security is the presence of Thiago Silva, Marquinhos, and Alisson. Because to me, the top 4 teams this World Cup are Brazil, France, England, Argentina. After that, you can put in Spain, Netherlands, Belgium, whoever. But to me, those are the top 4 teams. And so I asked myself, well, if the fullback position is weak, then they're going to have to rely on those center back positions and that goalkeeper position. And who does Brazil have? They have Thiago Silva, Marquinhos, and Alisson. But in comparison to the other squads out there, France have Varane, Kimpembe, and Lloris. Yeah. I'm taking Brazil's all day.
Yeah.
England have Maguire, Stones, and Pickford. Brazil wins that
matchup easily, yeah.
Lastly, Argentina will probably start Lisandro Martinez.
Probably.
And Cristian Romero.
Yeah.
With Emi Martinez at back. I think that's the one that comes closest, but even then, I'm still taking that Brazil back 3 first beyond any of those. Yeah. When you talk about Brazil having a weakness, they have a strength in what's there to make up for what the fullbacks can't do.
Yeah. Hella good coverage.
That's a hell of a safety net, man.
Yeah, bro.
Like, what else would you want if you're a Brazilian?
Exactly.
That's an amazing safety net. And so, for me, I feel a lot of security at the end of the day. Yeah. Sure, they won't dazzle. They might not produce those magical moments.
Yeah.
But all in all, for what this Brazil has up front, I think you're completely fine.
Oh, bro. Yeah, absolutely. So, to just finish that left back position specifically, I think, sure, it is probably the weakest link from Brazil. But if you compare to literally any other team at this tournament, it's still pretty goddamn strong, dude. And what's interesting, too, is that Roger Ibanez, who's playing very, very well for Roma right now, just got the call-up. And I could see a situation where if Chiche really wants to cover that side and not go with an offensive fullback, maybe like how Danilo is, he could actually play Ibanez wide left. Because right now, Ibanez plays in a back 3 as that wide left center back. And how many times do we see center backs, and when a coach wants to go defensive, just put them in that fullback position. They just don't go forward. They just stay back. That's completely fine. And if Chiche really thinks it's a defensive weak point, just put Ibanez as that left back, and you completely cover it. So either way, Chiche can find a way to make this Brazil backline as strong as it could be against any team at this tournament.
Does Dani Alves get called up?
I'm going to ultimately say no. And I think the biggest reason why is probably just because he doesn't play in Europe anymore. I think that's the biggest reason why. Obviously, coupled with the fact that he's goddamn near 40 years old now. Yeah.
It's just a little too past it.
It's just a little too past it, yeah.
Maybe even if it had happened last year when he was at Barcelona.
Maybe he would
have gotten that call up. But now it's just a little too past
just a little too late, yeah.
All right, let's move up. Let's move up to the midfield, which is another stacked area for the Brazilian national team. Now you have depth in that center defensive mid position with Casemiro back at it now, still playing at a high level with Manchester United now finding his form there, but we already know what he's capable of.
Oh, yeah.
Casemiro is a rock star in that position.
Oh, dude.
But even more so, man, you have Liverpool center defensive midfielder Fabinho.
Yeah.
Also there as an option if needed, who's actually gotten more call-ups recently than Casemiro has. There's a big debate of who starts in that position, but also what formation is Chiche going to go with? Because he's definitely going to have a backline of 4 players. That's what he always has. But from what I've seen, he goes with one of 3 formations, a 4-2-3-1, a 4-3-3, or a 4-4-2. That's going to define that midfield lineup for me. How do you think he's going to approach this tactically?
I think tactically he's going to go with either the 2 formations that give him 2 holding midfielders. I don't think he's going to have a single defensive point, and instead he's going to pair them. Mm-hmm. And so if that's the case, I could easily see a 4-4-2. Maybe more realistically, I see a 4-2-3-1, something like that. And if that is the case, if I say that he's going to have 2 holding midfielders, I think it's going to be Casemiro, and then alongside either, and this is where it could get interesting, Chiche could decide this, either Fabinho or Manchester United Fred.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, Fred has actually been playing a lot, especially in this last year and a half for Brazil. Chiche likes him.
And he's good.
No, and he's good. And that's the thing. Fred, at the end of the day, is actually a pretty good holding midfielder.
We see what he's capable of.
Exactly.
The system, man.
Precisely. It only benefits Fred if Ten Hag finds this form for Manchester United, because Fred is a part of the squad, even in the starting 11 for Manchester United, even now. Yeah. He's been Manchester United starter for the 4 years that he's been there, man. He's a very, very good midfielder. And honestly, he fits into this Brazil team perfectly. So I see Casemiro and Fred playing, but if you don't want to play Fred, or maybe you don't want to play Casemiro, you have perfect alternatives and Fabinho, and also Newcastle United player Bruno Guimaraes, who's actually been coming on the scene recently and getting some decent calls by Chiche.
Yeah. No, in other options than Coutinho as well, if you want, but maybe that's not the choice for center defensive mid. When he's gone 4-3-3, Paqueta gets a start in the midfield. Yeah. You also have Arthur as a potential option.
Technically, yeah.
Haven't seen much of him recently. But yeah, from Chiche's perspective, it's a mix of Casemiro, Fabinho, or Fred usually.
That's how I see it. And that's what I'm going to completely assume. I don't think there's anybody else on his mind when it comes to those center of the park midfield positions.
So let's assume it's going to be a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's what I've seen the most at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I'm fine with that. And to fill that midfield role in the center, I actually do think that Paqueta is going to be that higher point right behind the striker and right in the middle of the two wide players.
I agree.
Chiche likes Paqueta, man.
Yeah.
He loves him, dude. Yeah. He has complete faith in him. And honestly, he produces. He's Brazilian.
Yeah.
He's at the very core, Paqueta is a Brazilian creative midfielder.
Yeah.
Honestly, very similar to Kaká. Not as effective, obviously, because Kaká at his peak was one of the best players in the world. I don't think Paqueta has reached that level yet, even close. But Paqueta, at the end of the day, still has those same attributes. Incredibly skilled on the ball, but also an excellent distributor. Also, in transition too. You need Paqueta to just go at a player. He can too. He can also get involved in the box, score a couple goals. So Paqueta's, for me, the perfect attacking midfielder number 10 role that Brazil could offer right now.
You can keep going, man. You know I love Paqueta, man. I love Lucas, man.
I think he's going to start. I really do.
I went through and I circled who I think is a certified starter for this team.
No, it's Paqueta. Yeah.
Alisson, Marquinhos, Thiago Silva, Paqueta.
Yeah.
Up to where we're at right now. Yeah. I think Paqueta, because there's even a debate for Casemiro, Fabinho, who starts.
Slightly.
Paqueta's starting, bro.
100%.
Chiche is going to find a way.
Yeah.
He's going to find a way.
But it reminds me of when Chiche, I think for one specific cycle, constantly played Renato Augusto. Even though he was playing in China. He just liked him. He was like, this guy's starting for me. I don't care what anybody else says. He's my Brazilian holding midfielder. And it's the same thing for Paqueta, but just as the attacking midfielder. Yeah. It doesn't matter who else is in form. It doesn't matter who tells Chiche to play. Chiche's like, nah, I'm playing Lucas.
No, and that's a good thing because that's going to give Lucas so much confidence leading up to it, bro. Yeah. He's built a chemistry with Neymar, Vinny, whoever else is up there. And we'll talk about that. Yeah. But he's a certified start in this squad, man. Certified. So possibly Casemiro, Fred as holding midfielders. Maybe interchange that for Fabinho and Fred.
Yeah.
And then up in that attacking midfield position, Paqueta. Let's talk offensive options, man. It's world class, man. I think this is what Brazil has been missing for the past decade.
Yes.
Is offensive depth. There's been an over-reliance in Neymar and what he can achieve and create for this team for the past 10 years, and it's notable, man. You see it. That's why I think you saw that 7-1 defeat against Germany with him not being there. And you saw it especially in the 2018 World Cup with how much of that team relied on him to just create for them.
And once he got shut down, the rest of the Brazilian team had nothing.
Yeah.
They had nothing. And that's why they ultimately lost against Belgium, because Belgium just manhandled them once they figured out how to defend Brazil. And all you had to do at that point was guard Neymar.
Yeah. I know about two certainties here. And I researched and saw that Chiche said it himself. He said if healthy, Vinny Jr. starts on the left, Neymar starts in the middle. That's what he said. If healthy, that is his go-to option. He showed that during the qualifying cycles, that those are going to be the two biggest certainties for this Brazilian team when it comes to their offensive options. You look over on the right, and I think it's between two players, but even then, I think it's a clear-cut first option with Barcelona's Rafinha and Manchester United's Antony. And for me, Rafinha starts.
For me, I have Antony starting.
Whoa, okay.
I think Antony is just a little bit more in form right now, just overall. What I've seen from Rafinha at Barcelona, He's obviously doing really well, but I don't know. Rafinha, when just off the eye test, Rafinha's missing a little something. And for me, what it is, it's clinicalness, whether it's like on a cross or just the right decision. I don't know. Then again, I haven't seen a lot of Anthony because he just made that transfer to Man United. He just got there, but he did make a hell of a debut, though. He made a hell of a debut. So I think this will come down to form ultimately up to
exciting.
Up to the tournament. Yeah.
It's exciting. Like now when you watch Barcelona and Manchester United games, keep in mind that Chicha is watching these games to get his answer to who gets that right wing position.
Yeah. And again, right now, I would say I would take Anthony. I would. But there is a scenario, there is a situation where Rafinha just starts going off for Barcelona. But I think from a clinical point of view, from a guy that I could rely on to make a big goal-scoring opportunity and actually make it, I think I trust Anthony just a little bit more over Rafinha. But here's the thing. Starting Rafinha, not really that much of a downgrade. No. It's like a 1% downgrade, in my opinion, and that's it. So whether you start Anthony or Rafinha, I don't think it's actually a mistake if he goes with Rafinha, in my opinion. But I would start Anthony.
And that's the thing about this team offensively, that there really aren't many mistakes that you can make. I mean,
yeah, man.
Gabriel Jesus could possibly be on the bench.
Yeah.
On the bench, man. Roberto Firmino, that experience, that know-how is going to be there.
Yep.
Martinelli, could he get called up possibly? Rodrigo from Real Madrid. Richarlison. Pedro from Flamengo.
From Flamengo, yeah.
Mateus Cunha from Atletico Madrid. And Gabigol from Flamengo. That's who you have at your disposal. And the thing is, though, for me, the front three is pretty clear with the interchangeability of Anthony and Rafinha, because all these other players look set to come off the bench for that added element of energy and whatever is needed at the time. I feel like they're all going to embrace that. Assuming they're healthy, Vinny Jr., Neymar Jr., and then Rafinha or Anthony, I don't see any other player really breaking into the starting lineup based off what we've seen from Chiche and just the talent that is at hand.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. All the players that we just listed in every single position, wide left, wide right, and central, those are going to be the players that Chiche calls up. And as you said, the majority of them know that they're going to be coming off the bench, right? They know their role, but I think that's actually a good thing.
Yes.
But my ultimate takeaway on this front three, I think for me, 100% you start Neymar, obviously. I mean, I'm not even going to go say why. We're starting Neymar, 100%. I think you start Neymar 100%. I think you start, in this case, either Anthony or Rafinha. I'm going to just go ahead and say Anthony for my little spiel right now. I think I'm going to be a little critical of Chiche here if he doesn't start Jesus. I'm going to be completely honest. I understand why you want to start Vinicius wide left, though, right? Neymar and Vinicius occupy the same position at club level, left. Obviously, Vinicius can only play left. Yeah. He cannot play on the right. He absolutely loves the cut inside. It's all he really knows how to do, but he's so good at it, you can't stop him. So you have to play him on the left. You have no choice. So what does that do with Neymar? Well, Neymar obviously has the talent to go anywhere else in that front three. You could put Neymar wide right if you wanted to. I think it'd be a waste.
Put him at fullback.
Low key, bro. Put him in that left back position, bro. He'd probably be completely fine. But what Chiche is electing to do, how do I start Vinicius? Well, I have to start him wide left. So that means I have to move Neymar. I'm not going to put him wide right. So I'm going to start Anthony in this case. So the only other place that Neymar can go is going to be central, in that kind of false nine drifting position. Obviously, he's done it before, and clearly it's definitely worked because they have not lost a game. But the thing is, the way that Jesus is playing right now for Arsenal Football Club cannot be ignored. So much so that Chiche's got to look at himself and be like, I got to find a way to put Jesus in this front three. I have to find a way. And in my opinion, that way is you put Vinicius down to the bench, you put Neymar wide left, and you start Jesus as your target 9 up top. That's the only way I see Chiche making this front three truly elite and truly as good as it can be. If, in my opinion, if he does not start Jesus in that number 9 position, that is a mistake. I think that is the only mistake Chiche can make in this entire squad, is if he doesn't start Jesus. And it's clear, and it's only because of how Jesus has started off this season. If this was a year ago, I'd be like, don't start Jesus. Don't play him. You don't bring him off the bench. But the way he started for Arsenal, man, is ridiculous. Not even just statistically. I think he has 4 goals in 8 games, 50% goal scoring ratio,
and 3 assists.
And 3 assists. And that type of goal scoring ratio in any league is phenomenal. But not only that, his link-up play with all of his players, whether it's Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli, Udegaard underneath him, is low-key very similar to the personnel that Brazil have. You have direct player in Anthony or Rafinha, whichever one you want, but then you have creative flair player Neymar on the left in this scenario, where he can either cut inside, cut deep, or go out wide and send it across to Jesus. Or Jesus can go play with his pocket player in Paquetá. He plays in a very similar system at Arsenal, and it would only benefit Chiche to put him in the same system here at Brazil because it's a translation. It's not an adaptation that Jesus would have to make. And we've seen how well Jesus has combined, linked up with his Arsenal teammates. If Jesus can do that with his Brazilian teammates, which I don't see why not, I really don't after what I just said, then you have the deadliest front three at the World Cup. If you don't play him, though, obviously Vinicius is incredible. But then in that regard, you have two direct players in Anthony, Rafinha, and Vinicius. And then you have a little bit of flair with Neymar. You start Jesus. Jesus can be both direct, physical, and engaging, but he also has that flair and technique, as we've seen him score incredible goals and get incredible assists right this season with Arsenal. And I'm a little scared here because I don't think Chiche is going to go with it. I'm a little scared.
I actually don't think he is.
And I think it's a genuine mistake.
I think it's a question of what type of offensive mix he wants to create. Does he want something that's more direct, or does he want something that's more creative? For me, the Vinny Jr. Neymar mix is more creative, but it might be too much creativity.
Yeah.
It might be too much indirectness. Whereas if you put in Gabriel Jesus, it's very clear what he does for you and what do you have to give him. Because of the state of the Brazilian team and where they're at right now, the fact that they were able to qualify that the way that they did, I don't see Vinny Jr. and Neymar Jr. being a bad decision. Nor do I see the same with Neymar Jr. on the left and Gabriel Jesus down the middle. I think this is just a signal of how tight that decision is going to have to be for Chiche, and a decision that he'll probably have to make during the World Cup.
Yep.
Because he can't get that answer anymore.
I don't think
he
so.
He won't. He's going to get that answer like mid-game against like Switzerland in his first, in like the first match.
Yes.
He's going to realize that, okay, if we want to be able to penetrate efficiently, we might need Jesus. Or the opposite. Vinny Jr. might have a masterclass of a game.
Right. And he can.
And he won't have that option to it. He just you'll have to leave him on there.
Just from all of my experience, from what I've seen, you need a striker to win a World Cup. You need one. And you don't even need one that can score goals, but you need one that knows how to play with his back to goal. You need one that knows how to just be a nuisance in the box. Yeah. We saw Giroud do it in 2018.
Giroud was amazing. He was huge for that French
Huge.
team.
All he did was build, link. His number one priority was not to score. Yeah. It wasn't. And the thing is, Jesus can link. He can build, but he also can score. He's also a lot better than Giroud when it comes to efficiency in front of goal. And if there comes a point where, yes, you have penetration, and penetration like no other with Vinicius on the left, Neymar can't do hold-up play for 90 minutes. He can't. Yeah. It's not what he does. Now, obviously, he has the talent to do anything, and I'm not questioning Neymar's ability. What I am questioning would be Chiche's tactics in that regard, because by not starting Jesus, Chiche's telling me something. He's saying, I don't need a target man, and I don't think I want one.
Yeah.
And by making that decision, I'm critiquing him by saying he's making a mistake, because I think to be the deadliest offense in the world, you have to have an elite striker, and you already have that in Jesus. To not play him, I think, is a mistake, because you have it. It's not like Jesus is a striker and he's shaky.
Yeah,
it's not like Jesus is just trying to struggle and find form at Arsenal because he's with his new club. Jesus has been off it from the start this year with Arsenal. You have arguably one of the better strikers in the world right now in your colors for the national team, and Chiche would be electing to not even start him.
I do think
and for me, that's a mistake.
I think it's incredibly bold, man, to go with
It'd be incredibly bold.
Much younger player in Vinicius Jr. who had his rise just last year. Versus Jesus, who was at the World Cup 4 years ago.
Yeah.
He's a little bit more experienced. I don't know. I do think it's a very bold call. It's very bold.
I do. Yeah, it's very, very bold. And I'm already a little scared, man, because he didn't call him up for these two friendlies. And earlier in the pod, we talked about Coach Ego. And this might be one of those cases, man. And I know apparently he had a conversation with Jesus. All Jesus said was, I can't blame anybody but myself. All I can do is just be better at club level. I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what that means. Whether Chiche picks him and doesn't start him, I think it's a mistake. If Chiche doesn't even call him up at all, I think that's an enormous mistake. Jesus, for me, has to start at the top position, number 9 for Brazil at this 2022 FIFA World Cup. And I'm a little scared here because if Chiche just doesn't do that.
But on the same side, it's not like Vinny's like just some average left winger, man.
He's not.
He's phenomenal.
But I'm talking
he
about.
started off the season hot too, man.
Oh, no, he started off great.
Yeah.
He started off phenomenal. But I need a striker.
Yeah,
I need a number
more,
9. Just from
tactically,
yeah. Philosophically,
yeah.
I need a target man. And the fact that you have Jesus, play him. But not only that, it seems like Chiche is anti-Arsenal too, because he didn't call up Martinelli or Gabriel, the center back. Yeah. He didn't pick any of the 3 starting Brazilians that play for Arsenal. So that's interesting too. Now, obviously, he said, well, he's trying to look at new players. Sure, because he called up, for example, Pedro and Roger Ibanez. But then why didn't he pick Martinelli, right? Martinelli is doing great right now. He's looking incredible with Arsenal. And if he's looking at new players, Martinelli hasn't gotten that much call-ups.
Yeah.
Why not pick him?
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried about Chiche's ego right now. I'm going to be completely honest. Now, of course, at the end of the day, he'll probably pick Jesus, probably. And it'd be crazy if he didn't. It'd be absolutely wild if he didn't. So I'm not going to go there yet and say that Chiche has a huge ego. But I'll find out a lot come that first day when he lists his Brazilian 11. I'll find a lot about Chiche as a coach, man. Similar to Luis Enrique, because we were talking about how, is he going to pick Cucurella? Didn't pick him.
Yep.
Hasn't picked Cucurella, and I think that's just down to ego and down to he's not in my plans, so it doesn't matter how good he's playing, he's not coming. Just like you talked about Tolman.
But that ego's what got him a historic qualifying campaign too. it's what's kind of forming this amazing Brazilian squad already too. So I think it's tough, man. I almost wish that he had struggled a little bit during the qualifiers so that he could look towards other options. It's like his plan worked almost too perfectly. Too perfectly. And like I keep saying, he's gonna end up having to make that decision while the World Cup is happening, which is gonna be amazing to see. Like if he ever switches up that team sheet, it'll be fascinating to see what psychologically went behind the scenes for Chiche.
And that'd be fascinating. And just to be very, very clear here, yes, I would say that Jesus not being started is a mistake, but you still have a world-class front 3 regardless. I'm not saying that not picking Jesus is a complete downgrade, but he's so good that I think you have to start him. If he doesn't start, you still have an incredible offensive 3. An incredible
The moment
one.
that Neymar loses the ball, trying to hold it up, you're just going to be screaming at the TV, bro.
Absolutely.
Everybody's screaming. The first time he does it, too, you're just going to be on his ass about it, man.
Oh, bro, I'm going to be... like I said, I still think they'll be so entertaining to watch, but I will be genuinely upset, pissed if Jesus does not start, just from a football fan perspective.
It could be the decision that defines whether if Brazil can win the World Cup or not.
Yeah, it could be.
Important. Neymar Jr., man. What a story, man. What a career he's had.
I was thinking about that the other day, just like for fun.
The journey that he has gone through at club level, but also international level. I remember when I was watching the 2014 World Cup, the idea of a 24-year-old Neymar at the time, having the pressure of a country who was hosting the tournament on his shoulders, fascinated me.
Dude, he
man.
was asked to win the World Cup.
Yeah.
An entire nation from the moment that he was 17 at Santos, they're like you hear the echoes of the next Pelé. Yeah. Obviously the historic club Santos, also where Pelé played when he was coming through the Brazilian league. And you hear this guy Neymar wins the Copa Libertadores in 2011. And there's so much build up to 2014 because there was talks of should Neymar go to Europe beforehand. Would it be a mistake? Because what if he just doesn't play? Because he would go to Barcelona and you have Messi and Luis Suarez and there's just too much talent. Pedro, right? Would Neymar be an immediate fit? Why not stay at Santos so he can get game time and be match fit and match ready to play for Brazil? That in and of itself, an insane storyline, man. And to see it culminate to what ultimately ended up happening at the 2014 World Cup was incredible.
Mind-boggling, man.
Mind-boggling, dude.
Yeah.
The amount of pressure is just ridiculous.
Yeah, but the type of player that Neymar has become with his move from Barcelona to PSG, that being the most expensive player I think of all time right now, but also culturally what he's been known for, like his antics, the way that he flops on the field,
Right.
but also his incredible ability to get by a player, the dribbling that he has at his disposal is incredible. One of the best dribblers I've ever seen. Just the type of player and enigma that he is. 2018 happens and it's another disappointment. It really is, but it isn't his fault, because really that responsibility was given to him unfairly of asking him to do things that was too much for him to do.
Oh, yeah.
Something that the whole team should have done, not just him. 2022 is his chance to do something special.
Yeah.
And I get chills thinking about it, man, because he knows it.
Oh, he knows
Neymar
it.
knows it.
Yeah.
It's truly the first season that I've seen Neymar approach with a purely results-driven focus. He is out here just looking to win as many games as possible at the club and international level.
Yeah.
He's looking to play his absolute best solo and team football.
Yeah, produce on all fronts.
Yeah. Putting up assists, putting up goals. He's almost at double digits within League One already.
Yeah.
And he's playing with a mentality I've never seen him before, man. He's hungry. He is hungry. He is eager. And he's building himself up a season arc that I am excited to see progress at the World Cup with what could be a World Cup victory. Because the idea of Neymar lifting that World Cup trophy after everything he has been through within the media, within the teams he's been on, and the teammates that he's had, to see that culminate finally in a World Cup trophy for this specific player, man, would be awesome to see.
Yeah.
Would be awesome to see. As a fan of the sport, as a fan of the Brazilian country, and as a fan of his legacy.
Winning the World Cup this year would be absolutely vindicating for a player like Neymar. So many critics, man. So many critics, but an equal amount of supporters. People who genuinely just love watching Neymar play the beautiful game, man. And I'm one of those people. I think a lot of people are. But yeah, it'd be so vindicating for him to do it, because he's come from nothing in Brazil, made his name with Santos, went to Barcelona, was part of that huge front three. And that's kind of what I was getting at, is that in 2014, there was that weird transition from South America to Europe for him specifically. But then he was also asked to lead a nation in his home country. But then in 2018, things still weren't sure for Neymar club-wise, right? He had just left Barcelona. He was at PSG. But, he got a lot of criticism for that move, especially early on, bro. Especially early on. And obviously, that was just probably in his head for a while. And the PSG squad itself weren't really sure what to think about Neymar too. He wasn't the captain. He wasn't their go-to guy. He was just kind of like a superstar that came to Paris. Yeah. But now, in 2022, as you just perfectly laid out, Neymar is going off at PSG. But it's because he is PSG now. He is now at a club that he's completely involved in offensively, but also like low-key spiritually too. When people think about PSG now, Neymar's tied to that club now, because Neymar has become that. And so when you take that such positive energy at club level and you translate that to the amount of talent that you have at this Brazilian international team, this could lead to something great. Yeah. It really could. If there's a time to do it, as you said, he knows, I think this is that time, dude. Yeah. It's set up perfectly.
Yeah, it's set up to be, if he has that godlike moment of being able to lift the World Cup, it'll be an iconic image that goes down in the history of the game. Yeah. It'll be looked at in the same way that Cafu lifting the World Cup trophy in 2002, as Cannavaro in 2006, Casillas in 2010, the list goes on. Yeah. It'll be Neymar 2022, the immediate candidate for a Ballon d'Or.
Yes. The immediate candidate.
If he wins it, I just pray that he continues to stay fit, because he is the ultimate piece that Brazil needs. They need him to be able to win the World Cup.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Regardless of the talent they have at hand, it's Neymar who's going to be able to push them even further into that elite status. Yeah. And so I hope that we can see it, man. I hope.
My ultimate takeaway going into the World Cup just in general for both Brazil and Argentina, in the sense that I'm not convinced by South American competition. I'm not. So much so that the only thing I'm worried about for Brazil, and I'll go ahead and say Argentina, is can they do it against a really, really good European team who play, overall a different style of football, something that's so different to mid to lower tier South American teams. And can they do it on the biggest stage? Let's say they play Serbia, and Serbia just take it to them. They play that hard European football where it's just tight, but then they have like a couple players that can actually hurt you. What do Brazil do? Are they used to that? Because when it comes to World Cup qualifying, they're not. Club level wise, sure. But when you're out on that pitch, you have to rely on your teammates. And if you're not used to that type of pressure together, that could definitely be a weakness. I 100% agree. This was my ultimate take on why I don't think Brazil or Argentina will lift the trophy at the end of the tournament because of that. Because of that constant competition that European teams face and Brazil and Argentine teams don't. What do they do? Again, I guess we'll find out to see what type of coach Chiche is. But it isn't to say that they can't figure it out because these are elite players. Absolutely elite players. But I guess for my whole takeaway on this whole Brazilian squad, even if I just look past positives and weaknesses, I want to see the product. I just want to see it. I want to see what this 11 can do out on the pitch in the World Cup. Like, I'm done analyzing. I'm done speculating. Screw it. Don't start Jesus. I don't care anymore. I want to see what this Brazilian team in 2022 is actually made of. And I am so excited to see what they do because I don't know. I really don't know. All I know is that they're going to dazzle and that they have one of the most talented and stacked teams at this tournament. But I'm done analyzing. I'm done speculating. I want to see what they actually do. And, hey, this is what we're here for.
I've never seen Brazil win a World Cup. It's been 20 years since they last won it. And as a football fan, I've always yearned for that, man. Honestly, to be able to see even just a South American win the World Cup. I haven't even gotten that luxury, man.
And you won't.
Europe has dominated for decades. And I've always looked for that moment where I can genuinely believe that a Brazilian team can lift the World Cup trophy. In years past, I haven't felt that, man. I just haven't felt that. And especially in 2018, I didn't feel that.
Oh, no.
I feel it this year.
That's dope.
I feel it this year, man. I said it, 5 months ago when we made our early World Cup champion predictions.
Okay.
I said Brazil back then. I said that's who I would pick, but, time passes. Maybe my opinion changes. It's not changing, man.
Yeah.
I have Brazil lifting the World Cup trophy for the first time in 20 years. I have Brazil reminding everyone of the prowess that they are capable of on the biggest stage of this sport.
Yeah.
And I have Neymar Jr., the boy who's been critiqued, the boy who has been under siege for the entirety of his career, finally proving his doubters wrong, his critics wrong, in tears, lifting up the World Cup trophy for the first time in his career, and joining the icons that we know of this sport in this country, such as Ronaldinho and all those.
Yeah.
Brazil's winning the 2022 FIFA World Cup. I know it's early into our analysis and our predictions, but I think this is what I'm going to stick by.
Yeah, no,
I think this is my pick. I think that their World Cup qualifying cycle cannot be ignored despite what region they are in to achieve what they achieved amongst 17 games is incredible. But not just that, the way they did it. 40 goals for, 5 against, man. 5.
That's why.
And people are complaining about the fullbacks.
That's
5,
so true.
5 against, man. It's fascinating, man. It's fascinating. They're only going to continue building up that momentum that they built from those qualifying cycles. Chiche gets it right, and we see Brazil lift the 2022 FIFA World Cup. We go back to this video. I look like an absolute prediction king getting it right. And Neymar wins the Ballon d'Or. That is my prophecy and my prediction for this World Cup and this Brazilian team, man.
You just described Neymar's wet dream, dude. Oh, my God. That sounds incredible, bro.
It's time. And I think it's with this team. So, folks, that's who we're going with. Those are our calls here. My final predictions, Brazil wins the World Cup. How far do you have them going?
I have them as, first of all, I have them as genuine title contenders, as in I could see them lift the World Cup. But as far as just predictions are concerned, I'm going to say they ultimately won't. But I think they'll get pretty damn far, man. I have Brazil going to the semifinals and putting up a hell of a fight. And they're going to be beaten by a team, but by a really, really good team. We're going to be entertained like no other. But I don't have them lifting it at the end of the day.
Real quick, it looks very, very likely that if Argentina come out in first in their group and Brazil come out in first in their group, they'll meet in the semifinals, assuming they both win up to that point.
Right.
Can you imagine an Argentina versus Brazil semifinal matchup, man?
Oh, my God.
Can you imagine that? That'd be one of the most hyped up games in the history of sport for me, man.
Bro, no, like just in general, man. It'd be like probably one of the most watched games in history.
Yeah,
solely because Messi and Neymar are out on the same pitch for their countries at one moment in time.
With the opportunity
to go to a final.
To go to the final. Oh, my God, man.
Yeah, that sounds insane.
God. I have Brazil winning that matchup. If that happens, I have them winning it.
If that happens, I have them winning it. And then I don't know who they lose to.
But okay. All right, so you're going semifinal exit.
I'm going semifinal exit as a prediction, yes. But they could lift it. Okay. They have the talent.
Yeah. All right. So, folks, it's time. Let us know in the comments.
Yes, sir.
Everything you have to say about our takes and also this Brazilian national team. How far did they go in the World Cup? Will they lift the World Cup trophy? Neymar's legacy. I need to know y'all's thoughts on that. But, man, so many questions and so many things to find out as we get closer to the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Remember to let us know what you think in the comments. Who should we do next? What country should we analyze next? But for now, if you stayed up to this point, thank you for watching, and we'll be back again soon. Peace, guys.